Hey guys, welcome back to Behind the Lens. Tonight I've got a wonderful topic for you guys. I want to talk about composition. Okay? So, composition is not about putting together music. This is about building a good photo. And photographers have to compose in their photos to make them interesting. So tonight, I wanted to go over some tips with you guys that I got from ephotozine.com. I came across this article and a few others, and I liked theirs the best because, well, it was the simplest. And why not just keep things simple, right? So they gave 9 photo composition rules that you need to know. So we're going to go over these, and you guys, along with me, can get to making better photos. All right, so let's get into this. Tip number 1 is fill the frame. So sometimes you can have a background that's just really distracting, and whether you're doing a full session or you're just wanting to get one shot, you're out walking the street or whatever, a distracting background just really takes away from an image. So one way to get away from that is to fill the frame with your subject. The example I'm giving you is from a missions trip that we did in 2015 to Guatemala. I took this picture of this Guatemalan girl in the little village that we were ministering in, and there was just so much going on. There were a lot of people around, and you can see in the background there, there's some bamboo growing, just some foliage, and it was really distracting. And so I came in real tight on this photo, just to highlight that girl in the photo. And I think it turned out to be a wonderful image. It's one of my favorites from that trip. So fill the frame. Don't be afraid to fill the frame. Get in close, zoom in tight, fill the frame. Tip number 2, don't cut off limbs. It's a bad idea in real life to cut off limbs. It's a bad idea in your photos. Cutting off limbs creates an awkward moment. Because it just that person's got a hand or arm or leg, so why not just keep it in? In the photo I'm showing you here, this is a shot that I did, or a session I did some time ago, and this would have been such a better image had I left the little boy's hand in there. He was throwing the leaves. Clearly he's got a hand to do it, but we wouldn't know because you can't see it. So if I would have just zoomed out a little bit, taken a couple steps back, whatever it would have taken, just to get both of his hands in there, it would have been a better photo. So don't cut off limbs. Number 3, understand the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a wonderful tool that helps lay out an image. It's just super easy. Most cameras come with them built into the viewfinder. A lot of smartphones, you can go to your options and turn the grid on. That's the same thing. And sometimes you have multiple options for grids. Sometimes it splits into 9 segments. Sometimes it splits it into 25 segments. I don't know. Sometimes they vary. But this is what the standard rule of thirds grid looks like. You have 3 spaces up, 3 spaces to the right, 9 spaces total. You are cutting the screen into thirds. And these lines, these intersecting points, are natural points of interest. This is something that's been discovered over the course of time in photography, that the rule of thirds works in images. And so it's just kind of a guide to help you out, to help you lay out your photo properly, get horizons flat, things like that. So understand the rule of thirds. Number 4, use frames within the photo. And this doesn't mean to get out your big photo frames and have everybody gather inside of them. That's actually a fad that I wish would go away. No, what this is talking about is using elements within the scene, within the background, the foreground, whatever, to frame your subject. Now, these can be man-made, fences, gates, archways, whatever, or they can be natural, like tree limbs and shrubberies, the way they land a certain way, whatever. But use those to isolate your subject from the rest. And in the image that I'm showing you here, this is a family session that I did, and I used a veranda that was in this person's backyard to frame in the entire family. And it was really cool because it actually incorporated a lot of the some other tips that we're going to get to within one go. but this particular one, you know, it just boxed the family in, and there were plenty of elements within the veranda itself and within the rest of the scene that created interest, but all of them drew the eye to the family. It isolated the family in the photo. So use frames in your photos. Number 5, make the most of lead lines. Now, we talked about leading lines. If you've been following my Facebook page, then I did a challenge just a couple weeks ago that involved leading lines in my photo and to use them in such a way that created the concept of infinity. And so in the image I'm showing you here, this is the image that I used. It's a long exposure night shot that I did, that I tried to capture the road, and I did a little less than halfway up the frame because I wanted more stars. I wanted it because what's more infinite than space? And so I used the horizon, I used the road, the lines on the road, everything, the power lines coming down the side, to draw us to that middle section where all the points meet, and then you have an open sky, an open starry sky. And so use leading lines in your image. Make the most of them. Most of the times you're going to find them somewhere throughout your image. They don't have to be straight. They just have to draw the eye in. And whether that's, you know, a path or whatever, just something that draws your eye to the subject, so that people know. And this actually leads us to the next tip. Number 6, simplify. Know your focus. Make sure that you have an obvious point of focus within your image. Make sure that it is easy to distinguish whenever you look at a photo that the subject is known, that it's obvious. In the image that I'm showing you here, I was at this farm, and it was really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff to take a picture of, and I thought it'd be really cool to frame up the open barn area here with the tractors next to this cool barn door. And I took the shot, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, man, it's just missing something, you know. And the problem was you don't know what to focus on. And so to simplify it, if I would have just taken a step back and, you know, like, let's say, just moved over and just did a shot of just the tractors, you know, within their doorway, it probably would have made a better image. And so that's what I did, and this is what it looks like. See, and so the subject actually becomes the tractors, and it's a much better image. If I could have gone over and just taken a shot of the door. It would have been harder because everything around it is red and all the lines kind of match up, and it wouldn't have stood out quite as much. So that's why I went with the tractors. So simplify. Just make sure your subject is clearly defined. Number 7, watch the background. We kind of hit on this a little bit in tip 1, but we're going to hit on it a little more, that we need to understand that the background should enhance our image. It should give our image context. You know, it should bring context to the subject, why they're there, what are they doing. It shouldn't distract it. You know, you don't want to have a super blown out image. You know, so if you look at these frogs, okay, I got a couple of pictures of frogs here I'm going to show you. So the first one, you know, you see the water, you can see the rocks underneath, and but the background of it all, just the rocks and everything, just kind of takes away from the frog. And so what you can do to help this is, you know, sometimes just changing your angle a little bit, and sometimes that helps. So what I did was I actually dropped down a little bit and used the natural skylight to kind of glaze over the water a little bit, create a reflection that kind of blocked everything out and brought the frog right to the foreground. But you still understand that it's water, you can still see rocks around a little bit, and just really made for an all-around better image. Tip number 8, look for symmetry, look for patterns. You know, whether that's, you know, a series of lampposts or, you know, trees in a row or some other objects, things that are, you know, similar in size, shape, texture, whatever. And use those to add interest to your photo. Let them add direction to your photo. You know, in the one I'm showing you here, this is my son Isaac. We were at a shoot at a park, and I saw this fence, and I thought we need to utilize that. And so, you know, I angled myself in such a way that you had, you know, all of these wrought iron, you know, fence posts going down the side, you know, and so I use that to not just draw into, you know, Isaac, using them as leading lines, but also just as a point of interest within the photo, but but it doesn't take away from who the subject is. It doesn't take away from Isaac being, the subject of the photo. It just enhances the image. And last but not least, number 9, create depth. Having foreground, midground, and background elements add to the depth of your photo. It helps guide the eye. It just creates a sense of depth, a sense of space within your image. And so in this one, I took this black and white of a lighthouse in Michigan, and so there's a lot of these concepts within this image. Leading lines and symmetry. You can see the post on the side. They don't poke up, but they're all similar, and they go down the sides of the path leading to the lighthouse. You have the post in the middle that one up close, and then they, as they get further away, they get smaller. So you're getting this sense of depth the further away you get from that first post, seeing the lighthouse in the background. And so I use that to create that sense. So once you understand all these rules, you've worked with them, you've gotten familiar with them. One of the coolest things about photography is that you can take these rules and you can kick them to the curb. So once you're familiar with them, take time and learn how to break them. Sometimes, like with the rule of thirds, sometimes go just off, sometimes do something a little different. Just, the one thing that I see a problem with rule of thirds is if you follow it all the time, well, your images become predictable and mundane. So do things different. Rule of thirds, it's a good tool to, line up your horizon. Well, sometimes you just need to take a crooked picture. You don't want all of them to be crooked. And you want it to look intentional. You don't want it to be like, oh, it's just a little bit lazy and it's a little off. I mean, get in there and, touch each corner with a horizon or with a leading line. That's one of the coolest things about photography, is that it's all about artistic expression. There are rules, and you are free to break all the rules. So check out ephotozine.com, look for this list, take it off of here, and get out there and do your best. Learn, grow, take better photos. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you had a good time. Stay tuned for next week, and we'll see what we have in store. All right, guys, and once again, get out there and keep shooting.